Hello and welcome to the Experiencing Love podcast. I'm your host, Philip Chucks, and I'm so glad that you're here. One thing I love about being in a great state of mind is how easily ideas flow, how easily ideas come to mind, and I guess in a way, it's how easy it is to be creative. I feel like there's times in our lives when we're not able to be as creative because we're in more of a survival mindset. We're in that protective mindset. That could be stress, that could be anger, that could be fear. And when you take the time to work through those emotions and get out of them and come to a state of creativity and joy and excitement, those ideas just begin to flow. And I started thinking about this because I've been doing my meditations every morning. I used to do meditations years ago, and it was one of those things where I enjoyed it, I felt good, but I felt as though I didn't really have the time. And I also don't think I walked into meditations with much of an intention. And so when life came crashing down around me in different areas of my life, and I had to choose how I wanted to delegate my time, meditations were just one of those things that I put on the back burner. And I only just recently started to get back into them with the intention of not just calming my mind and relaxing, but also connecting with who I am, connecting with my archetypes, and using that connection to create those ideas, create those good ideas that I was talking about. So while I was doing my meditation today, I got this idea that I've gotten multiple times before, but never acted on them. And it was this idea that I wanted to record my own priming audio and meditation. It might be a video, but for sure I wanted to create at least an audio file for me to listen to. Pretty much it would be taking my favorite parts of each type of meditation that I do and putting it all into one experience. I want to do it for myself, but while I was meditating today, I also had the idea of sharing it with other people. Putting it on the internet, putting it on Spotify, putting it on YouTube, giving access to the world to see what is it that helps Philip think the way he does. What do I do on a daily basis that gets me in this mode, that gets me in this mindset? How can I do it day after day? How can I make it repeatable and scalable, So I guess that idea that felt so amazing was not just creating this, but sharing it. Because I've wanted to create this for a while now. I've had these ideas multiple times. And maybe there's times in our lives where we have great ideas, but we're not meant to act on them. Not at that time. And it's for a reason. I think if I recorded a meditation a few months ago, it wouldn't have been as used or as impactful as I wanted it to be. Versus now it's so imbued with intention and purpose that I just know it's going to create that change in my own life and in other people's lives that I'm aiming to create. So I thought that was all pretty cool. Just getting the chance to see that creativity in action. Because I've always known myself to be a creative person. I've always enjoyed the arts. Back when I was in school, some of my favorite classes were the variety of art classes that I took, whether it was painting or drawing. For years, I also spent time doing the school plays. I was a theater kid after all. And the singing was fun and the dancing was fun. It got me to move my body and express myself in ways that I never expressed myself before. But the thing that led me to all those things was undoubtedly community. It was the people that were there. Because when I stopped doing those things, it was for the same reason. The community has changed. It shifted. It wasn't what it once was. And instead of trying to stay there and force it, I went on and found it elsewhere. I remember I ended up joining the basketball team and found the people there. Realized I didn't really love basketball, but I made the friends. And so the following year I didn't join the basketball team again, but I still had those same friends. But back to the creativity, I've always had a calling towards it. I've always felt drawn to it. For years, I even volunteered as a counselor for a local arts and crafts program in the summer. And that was so much fun, being able to be creative with the kids. There's a sports side and there's a craft side, and I always found myself at the crafts table. So I've always had this pull towards creativity. And it wasn't until recent years that I really embraced it. Embraced it from a place of wanting to explore myself and express myself, get to know who I was. And I take pride out of the art and the things that I create. At the end of the day, I'm a creator, not a destroyer. Every day I wear these 2 rings. I got them at the beginning of the year. There's one on my index and one on my pinky. And the one on my index, I like to spin around and I like to hold, and I'll switch it from hand to hand. And every time I touch it, I tell myself that I'm the creator of my own life. I get to create what I want to create in my life. I'm guided in the direction, but at the end of the day, I get to make the choice. What is it that I want to create? The second ring I have is my pinky ring. That one usually stays on the left hand. It's this beautiful Damascus steel with a glowstone inlay. And this one I actually got for free as a gift. And because of that, every single time I touch the ring, I tell myself that life is happening for me, not to me. I'm the creator of my life, and life is happening for me, not to me. But that type of mentality needs to be practiced. It needs to be cultivated, embraced. We're all creators. We all have the ability to create, to be creative. But some people don't practice that muscle. And like with all other muscles, if you don't use it, you lose it. But it could always be built up again. I also believe that different types of people have a different pull towards it. I like to attribute it to my lover archetype, because the lover is all about sensations and emotions and feeling. And when I think about art and expressing myself in creativity, it's all about feeling. It's all about emotion. It's all about creating and not destroying. And there's people out there who are more so inclined, are more so attuned to maybe their warrior, or maybe their magician, or maybe their king, and it'll show up differently in each of their lives. I've just always been closest to my lover. I've always been the sensitive kid. When I was growing up, I didn't understand why. I didn't understand why I was so likely to cry, because those were some of the most powerful moments that made me cry. But I also remember moments that made me laugh and made me excited. And I just kind of realized that it's not that I was most likely to cry, it's that I was most likely to feel on a deeper level than those around me. And I acknowledge that as my superpower. It makes me who I am. Being able to feel so deeply. I now have this ability that through my experiences I've created. And it's this ability that I can feel on a very deep and very emotional level, and at the same time stay detached. And by that I mean I've always been a feeler. I've always been passionate, and it got to the point in my life where I was feeling so much and I didn't understand my emotions and I didn't understand how to cope with them, that I went in the complete opposite direction and I blocked it all off. I compartmentalized. And this was probably from ages 11 or 12 until 19, 20. For years, I loved feeling the happy feelings and avoided any sad feelings or pain or anxiety or depression like it was the plague. I no longer do that. Practicing that skill for 7, 8, 9 years has left its mark, but I see it as a gift because I could both be empathetic, be sympathetic. I could feel what you're feeling if I wanted to. You tell me a win, I'll feel it with you. You tell me a loss, I'll be there to support you and console you. And yet, I know how to keep enough distance so that I don't get sucked in, so that your emotions don't become my responsibility. I find that a lot of people get trapped in that. It could be parents with kids, kids with parents, significant others in relationships, friends, bosses, coworkers. People take it upon themselves to make sure that someone else feels a certain way. And what I know and believe is that a truly healthy relationship is built on the foundation of responsibility and self-responsibility. Because I now know that the only people that could control how we feel are ourselves. I'm the only one that could get myself to feel a certain way. I could be greatly influenced by the world if I let it. I can influence other people, but I can never control them. I can never control how they feel. So because of that, I don't take responsibility for how others feel. I don't go out of my way to try to hurt someone and then tell them that, oh, you're hurt because you're not controlling your feelings. No. It just means that if I do something, if I make a mistake and I accidentally hurt someone, I also know that I don't need to fall down that spiral of shame and guilt and pain that they may be experiencing, because that doesn't help anyone. I could stay in a place of empathy, yet calm and resolve, and I can help them. I could influence them out of those emotions, but I also know that if they don't want out of those emotions, it's not on me. Because you'll also find that some people, actually every person, has habits with how they feel. And if you ever get curious about those habits, just watch what people say. It'll tell you a lot. What are the emotions that people use most often? Do they say they're pissed off? Do they say they're excited all the time? Do they say they're grateful? The words they use most often dictate how they feel. I promise you on that pattern. Just observe it. And sometimes people enjoy feeling pain and suffering because it may serve one of their many needs. It might give them certainty because although it's painful, they know what the pain feels like. It might be uncertainty or variety where, they usually feel good. So every once in a while, they like to feel bad just to spice things up a little bit. It might make them feel important. They might feel as though when they're sad or when they're anxious or depressed or angry, they have a level of importance that they normally don't have. Or maybe they've learned that they could get connection when they are upset, that people will reach out when they're upset. Whatever the need is that's being filled, you'll find that people will feel a certain way to fulfill their needs. This is quite a wild tangent because now I'm trying to think back to how I even got here. I have no clue. That's what I love about this podcast, about this path that I'm on. I remember talking about creativity, that's for sure. And this is just one of my creative outlets. Sometimes I just speak and it's going to become completely clear to me as soon as I re-listen to this audio and I'm editing this episode. But as of right now, I just got so into it. My heart was so into it that I just completely lost where I was coming from and where I was going. That's my emotional home now. That's where I choose to feel most often. I choose to feel as many good emotions as I can. I don't ignore the bad ones, but I also don't sit there and wait there anymore. This became really obvious to me about a year ago, maybe a little longer, when I was already in therapy for about a year and a half maybe. And in that year, I've learned so many tools and exercises and methods that work for me to not feel depressed and to not feel anxious. At the time, it was truly depression. At that point, I didn't quite understand why I was feeling depressed, but I just knew how to get out of it if I was feeling that way. And I remember one day, I have this list. I know that if I go for a walk, I feel better. I know that if I make sure to eat healthy, I feel better. I know that if I'm getting enough sleep, I'm feeling good. I know that when I put on music and dance, I feel great. I know that when I journal, I immediately feel better every single time without fail. I had this long list of things that I could do. And there was this one day that I was laying in bed for a long time. And my mom knocks on my door and comes inside. And I just kind of look up at her and say, I'm just not feeling it today. I'm just feeling a little bit depressed. And I don't remember what she said, but I remember this look of pity, and she closed the door. And I stared up at my ceiling and decided I wanted to ask a different question. And so I asked, why is it that I know how to not be depressed, and yet I'm still choosing to feel depressed? In terms of the archetypes, the magician knew exactly how to get me to not be depressed, but my lover wanted me to be depressed. I liked feeling depressed. That's what I learned. I learned that even though I knew exactly how to stop being depressed, I didn't want to stop. Because if I wanted to stop, I would. It wasn't a matter of skill. It was a matter of drive, of motivation. And then I asked why. Why do I want to feel depressed? And the truth of the matter for me was I realized I had this simple belief, this core value as a foundation, which was sad kids get asked why they're sad, but happy kids don't get asked why they're happy. Now, I'm not saying that's 100% true. I'm just saying that's what my experience taught me. And I looked at that moment and said, so being sad and being depressed gives me the attention that I want to feel, that I want to experience. I'm more likely to get attention, say, from my family or my loved ones if I'm depressed rather than if I'm excited. Because especially back then, I didn't know how to ask for the help that I needed. I didn't know how to reach out to someone and say, hey, I'm feeling lonely or I'm feeling isolated. Do you have time to talk? This was an instinct. This was a skill that I built. So as soon as I realized this, I remember immediately changing everything that I did because I was able to start asking the questions of why. Like, why was I feeling depressed in that moment? Am I feeling lonely? The answer was yes, many times. And as soon as I started to build skills in reaching out for support and reaching out for help and just talking to people, lo and behold, I haven't felt depressed in a very long time. And when I do, I notice it so fast now that I'm able to snap out of it. And it's not that I just change how I feel, it's that I address the problem. Because we don't naturally feel depressed or anxious. It's a reaction to something. And so rather than sit there and feel defeated and motionless, I do something about it. I do something about my depression and my anxiety. And now I don't even really use those words. I don't have depression. I don't have anxiety. I may sometimes feel a little depressed or feel a little anxious, but it's no longer a label on my identity. It's not who I am. And because it's not who I am, I have no reason to sit there and endure those things. Because admittedly for me, it's not comfortable. Some people still find comfort in it, and that's perfectly okay. That's where they're meant to be on their journey. I just decided for me that if I could do something different, I will do something different. Yeah, I think that's where we could pause this one for today. You know the discussion continues every single day. These daily downloads. These are just the downloads from our archetypes, who we are, what we do. They share with us what we need to know at every moment. I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day. As always, it's a beautiful day to have a beautiful day. Remember to always fill up with the love, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. I love you.